Hey, and we're live. Hey, put on your seatbelts and get ready. It's time to join me as I dive into the world of Costa Rican homes and take on the challenge of finding out, are cement blocks really the way to go? Eventually, you're going to buy a house, or you're going to actually eventually you're going to buy a house or you're going to build a house. And there's lots of different materials that I can't say a lot of different materials, but hey, there are a few different materials that you can build your house out of. But what's the most popular material that houses are built out of in Costa Rica? Well, we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly. But first, welcome to the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast. Hey, I'm Alan. And if this is your first time here, well, I've been living in Costa Rica for almost 12 years now. Lived in over 25 different houses, locations, diving in, trying to find my perfect slice of paradise. And look, I love sharing my experience, my perspective of living in Costa Rica. Now, keep in mind, as I share all of this stuff, hey, I'm not the guru of all gurus. I can tell you that I believe I know more than anybody that's sharing this information on YouTube. And the truth is, I'm the only person that's going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's simply because I'm not trying to con you into coming to Costa Rica simply so you can buy more of my product and services. You see, I don't have anything to sell. So we're going to get in here and we're going to dive in, and I'm going to just help you learn everything that you need to learn or answer your questions. But first, hey, we got a really gloomy day. It's raining, and the metal, I think you might can hear it. I don't know. You tell me, folks. Are you able to hear me, or is the rain, the pitter-patter on that metal roof, is it just too loud? Am I going to have to cancel this live and then just reschedule next week, earlier in the week? So, hey, there's a few folks on the live. Hey, let me know, if you can hear me okay, on a scale of 1 being horrible, 10 being, hey, we can hear you fine, your mic is working, well then answer in the comment below, okay? So, hey, go ahead and give me some answers right now so I know whether I'm wasting my time or not. So, hey, I've got a couple of responses. Folks, give me a reply, be engaging, and hey, look, the more engaging you are on the live, hey, the whole lot better it is for everybody. So I've got a couple of replies. I would like to get some more answers, from folks. And hey, Ken says you're good. WP says I hear you fine. Jeremy Bart says, hey, it sounds good. All right, fantastic. So hey, Prince says I can hear you. It's about a 7, pretty good. So hey, so glad that you're here. And look, let me remind you to be engaging. Hey, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share. And look, be engaging. Toward the end of this podcast, I'll be sure to answer all of your questions as much as I can up to the hour, okay? So, hey, I greatly appreciate all of you. Robin Laura says, we can hear you. William says, you're okay. So, fantastic. So, let's get into it. All right. So, as you know, I've been doing a series on building in Costa Rica. And whether you build or whether you buy, this series is going to help you and can save you thousands upon thousands of dollars if you can take to heart the stuff that I'm sharing with you. Now, you know what? I've got some friends and subscribers that are living, let's say, in the greater metropolitan area, okay? So, I share a lot of stuff, and unfortunately, it's a lot of negative stuff. I'm pretty transparent. I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Unfortunately, while I love Costa Rica, and there's a lot of great things about it, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad things. And I tell you these things because other channels, they're trying to sell you Costa Rica. They're not going to tell you the ugly because they want you to come here and buy their crap, okay? So, my point being, when I share stuff, I, on purpose, live in more remote and rural areas. On purpose, I don't live in a city. Don't want to live in a city. Don't like the city. I don't want to live where there's a lot of gringos and other people. Because unfortunately, I've learned, well, they're pretty nasty too, There's good people left in the world, but unfortunately, I think there's a lot less good people than there are bad people. So my point here is that I share a lot of stuff, and you know what? If you happen to live in some of the better places, it kind of all boils down to this, okay? When I'm sharing this stuff, if you live over in the San Jose or the metropolitan area surrounding that area, you may or might not ever experience some of the things I share. Now, you know what? If you venture out and if you're around other Ticos, well, from eventually, sooner or later, you're going to experience some of the things I experienced. And I hope you never experience some of the bad things I experienced. But that's the reason I share all of this stuff, in order to prepare you and not to scare you. You know, if you live in San Jose or the metro, it's completely different. Man, it is not. I mean, look, a couple of weeks ago, I was down on Escazú Avenue, right there next to PF Chang's. And look, you can get some amazing food. It's not Tico food, but you can get some amazing food. You can buy things. You can shop. You can shop till you drop, man. I mean, you can find stuff. But you know what? While there's a ton of people living in San Jose, the majority of the gringos and foreigners that come from other countries to Costa Rica, they're not looking to live in San Jose. And hence, that's the reason, you know, I try to say, hey, look, the stuff I'm sharing, if you want to live in San Jose or in one of these upscale areas, you probably won't experience what I'm going to, and that's good. That's good for you. But I don't want to live there. So, hey, you know, money solves a multitude of issues. If you happen to have money, a lot of the issues that I experience, you probably won't experience, okay? Because the bottom line is this. If you get to live in a place where it's upper class, okay, these people have more respect for one another. You have less problems. The upper class or wealthier areas is far more developed, and it's a lot greater. So anyway, my point is, let's get back to the story here as we talk about building, because most of you are not going to live there, and you're going to live in remote areas. And so I'm trying to help you to understand, okay? All right, so let's talk about building in Costa Rica. And as the thumbnail talks about, is cinder blocks or concrete blocks, is it going to be the best bet? Well, a lot of that really depends. Okay, so number one, when we're talking about cinder blocks or building out of cement, the majority of the houses in Costa Rica are built out of cinder blocks or built out of prefab cement. So if the majority of the houses in Costa Rica is built out of cement, immediately you think, well, cement must be a pretty good thing to build out of. And the answer is, well, that depends. That depends on where you live, what's the foundation, what's the soil, okay? Do you have a lot of earthquakes? So you can build with cement, and it can be extremely strong. However, we're not talking about what you can build out of. We're talking about what do most of the contractors who are building in Costa Rica build out of. They build out of cement, okay? So the question is why? Well, if we go back hundreds of years and we find out what they've been building out of, the majority of the time Costa Rica's been around and existed, they've been building out of cement. And the question you have to ask is why? Well, number one, cement is probably the easiest, and because labor is so cheap, the cheapest building material that you can build out of, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind, okay? So get ready. I have seen contractors show up on the job to build a brand new house, and the only tool he had was a water level and a hammer, okay? Because really, you don't need much more than that to actually build a concrete cinder block house, okay? So, hey, you get some Ticos out there, you get some shovels, and you start mixing cement on the dirt, all right? And you put just a cement foundation in the footers and start building a house. Here's what's going to blow your mind. I have actually watched with my own eyes a contractor show up on the job site, okay? This guy, the contractor, he knew pretty much what he was doing. Now, a good contractor doesn't need to know everything. He just needs to know how everything is supposed to work. Well, this contractor was pretty good. He showed up, and I'm like, where is your help? He said, I don't have help. Wherever I go, I hire local people to do the job. So he actually hired local people from that community, the community of people I knew. Now, he hired most of them from about 2 families. I knew those families very well. And guess what? He ended up with a crew of 6 or 7 people. And that whole crew, not a single person had not a single day of building experience. That contractor taught them what to do. They started mixing cement, and within the next 4 or 5 months, they built the house. Now the house looked good, okay? But keep in mind, you can cook a dog crap. You can cook a cake. You can bake a cake out of turds, and by the time you get done putting frosting on it, it can look great, okay? Now, I watched this guy build a house, and look, the house, it was solid, okay? It was, now, was it plumb? Was it level? Was it square? Well, it was close, but it was far from being what it should have been, okay? But what was very, very impressive to me is watching this guy hire people, train them on site, and build a house. Now, why is that? Well, that's the way a lot of contractors in Costa Rica do it, because their main goal is not that it's built to any kind of American standards, not that it looks good, not that it's beautiful, not that it's pretty. It has to be functional, okay? So it doesn't really matter when it comes to concrete. It doesn't matter how square, doesn't matter how level, doesn't matter how plumb, because when you're building with cinder block walls, you can take and put enough mortar on the outside, which is frosting on a cake, and make it look pretty. And it's kind of like what Prince says right here. It's like lipstick on a pig. You're absolutely right, okay? So all right, so hey, we were buffering there for a while. Hey, we're just having some bad weather right now. But anyway, Jeremy is saying there's plenty of good and shabby work here in the States as well. So, I'm not banging on Costa Rica or talking bad about them. Here's my point. In Costa Rica, you have, and it's like you're saying, Jeremy, there's good and shoddy work in the States. Unfortunately, in Costa Rica, you're going to find way more shoddy work than you will professional or high-end work. Now, let's go back to what I said earlier. If you live in San Jose or the metropolitan area, you can find some amazing and some really great skilled contractors. You're going to pay a whole lot more for them. But we're talking about living in San Jose or the metropolitan area where, these people are far more educated. It's nowhere near like the rest of remote Costa Rica. So I'm just trying to help you understand that, hey, unless you're living in San Jose, the metropolitan area, and you're going to live where most of my subscribers are going, it's going to be hard to find an exceptional contractor, okay? That's why it's really, really important to have somebody like myself or an inspector to be on the job to make sure things are done right, okay? And now I was on the job, and I watched this guy train people, and I was there to make sure everything was right. And by the time we got done with it, as far as I could control it, it was a whole lot better than it would have been, but that was only because the contractor was very smart, okay? And he was willing to learn. He wanted me to help him to improve himself so that he could be a better contractor. And so he took my advice, and he made everything I suggested. He jumped on it, and he did it, okay? So my point is, if we're talking about concrete is not the best building material in Costa Rica, but it is what's used the most, and that's simply because, hey, a contractor can go to the job, he can build something, he doesn't have to buy a ton of material. So instead of going in the States where you might actually, be using saws to cut the blocks, they're just using a hammer and they're breaking them, okay? And they're putting them together. And it doesn't matter if they're broken just right because you put enough mortar on it, okay, guess what? You're not going to see all the damage that's being created, all right? So just trying to help you to understand, cement's not the best, and a lot of Costa Rica does have lots and lots of earthquakes. They're not huge earthquakes. They're a lot of tremors. And yes, you can put in enough rebar. You can put in enough reinforcement. But with tremors, your concrete's going to crack. It's going to break, okay? Now, is your house going to fall apart? Probably not, because most of the time in Costa Rica, you're not going to get that big of earthquake. Costa Rica's had a few bigger earthquakes, and I'm sure it probably has caused some serious damage, but I don't know that it's going to be enough for you to worry about, should I build with concrete or not. If it were me, I would be building out of metal, but we'll talk about maybe metal and other building materials on another day. Today, I kind of want to focus on cement. So we talked about cement blocks, and you got to make sure that you're doing cement blocks the right way. Cement blocks are supposed to interlock. And I've seen a lot of places where these ticos are beginning to build blocks and they just stack them, and they're large blocks. That ain't good at all. You really are messed up if you let somebody do that, okay? So you really have just got to be careful. You've got to either know what's going on, or you need to hire someone that does know what's going on so that you don't miss out, okay? Now, one of the good things about building with cement is exactly what this guy is saying. The good thing is that you don't have to worry about termites. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that they do use cement a lot. Because now where I'm at, we don't have a problem with termites, but it's too high up in elevation and it's too cold. But in most of Costa Rica, there are tons and tons and tons of termites. You see the termite nests all over the place. And in the United States, we typically get to see termite nests in the trees, in the bushes. Termites were typically subterranean and they were under the ground. In Costa Rica, guess what? Termites are all over the trees, and almost every single house in over 25 different locations I've been in, almost every single one had a lot of termite damage. A lot, a little to a lot of damage, because now if you have a house and you can afford to have it sprayed and treated all the time, okay, no problem. Money solves a multitude of issues. You've got money, you can build with whatever you want to, and then you can have it treated, okay? I don't want those chemicals in my house. So let's go back to the cement, right? So we talked about cement blocks, but another very popular, and it's kind of recent. In the last few years, there's a lot of prefab cement houses. Man, it's just these cement poles, these cement panels, and so there's several variations of the cement prefab houses. Hey, they're pretty good, okay? Now, they go up really fast, a lot faster than cement blocks, okay? So a prefab house, I've seen people put up a prefab house in a month, and while it's basic, doesn't have a ceiling, it's basic, but they can put up a prefab house in a month's time, bam, you're living in a house. And hey, so it just depends to your liking, what you want, how much money you want to spend. They can be very cheap as well. So whether you're building a cinder block house out of blocks, or you're building a prefab cement house, okay, they can be a lot cheaper than having to build a wood house, okay? And cement blocks typically are going to be more insulated. The cement blocks are insulated. Now, the regular prefab cement houses, well, that cement is about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches thick. Not insulated, but the cement itself being 1 inch or 2 inches thick gives it some bit of insulation, but it's really kind of thin, okay? So, but you still run into the same problems with earthquakes and that. And so the actual cinder block houses are probably better for earthquakes than the actual prefab houses. But hey, I really honestly, that's just my guesstimate, estimate. I don't have experience with either one of them other than what I've been seeing and what I've looked at, okay? So definitely do be careful. Now, I'm going to look at some of these questions real quick. But before we go on to that, so, hey, when it comes to building with cement, you do have a couple of choices. right? You can build in cinder block houses. You can build prefab houses. Are there other cement? Well, there is a new type of building, and it uses more of a form to where now you just, once you put up the house and it's really pretty much forms, then they pour cement down in the forms, and then your whole house is a solid cement structure. That, in my opinion, is way stronger than everything else when it comes to cement blocks and or prefab. Okay, but that is going to cost you a lot more, but a lot stronger. Okay, so those are some, and I'm sure there might be some other variations, but those are the kind that I'm more familiar with. I'm going to be talking about a different type of cement a little bit later into the series, this building series I'm talking about, but I don't want to talk about that now because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But there's a different type of cement that very few people are using, but I think would be probably a great alternative. Now, let me take a look at some of these questions. Tess says, well, let me see if I can get this back into focus. All right, so for whatever reason, my camera doesn't want to focus just yet. That's okay. Anyhow, Tess says, I kind of feel like it's better to live somewhere where you have freedom from needing constant permits than living somewhere with good contractors, but you need permits for every darn thing. And you do kind of have a point there, Tess, okay? So that's one of the reasons I absolutely love Costa Rica. Where I'm at, for example, I need absolutely zero permits. I didn't get a single permit for where I'm at, okay? And I won't go into the details, but it's because of where I live and how remote I am that, so I won't go into details, but hey, I like the freedom that I can build whatever I want to. I don't need a permit. I can build as much as I want. Don't need a permit. All of the other locals in this area, building whatever they want to, don't need a permit. So there are some disadvantages to that, okay? But kind of like Tess says, if I had to live in the United States where I'm nickel and dimed, I got to have a permit practically to flush my toilet, well, I think I'd rather be in Costa Rica, okay? So there is a trade-off there, like Tess is saying, okay? So I'm going to come through here and take a look at a few of these other questions real quick. Now, let me see if I can catch these that are on topic before I go to some of the others, okay? All right, so I hope all of you can still hear all right, okay? So, let me see here. Now, I was talking about if you live over in the San Jose metropolitan area, or you live where there's a lot of other expats and gringos, yep. The more expats there are, the more expensive things are going to be. It changes the whole culture. It changes everything about it. And so that part of the world does change, okay? So you just have to know that. If you want to live around other gringos, everything's going to change. And it's before long, you don't even feel like you're living in Costa Rica. I mean, one place in particular, where I was building this big, huge house over in Playa Hermosa. In Playa Hermosa, that's Hermosa Calle, there's far more gringos than there are Ticos. And when you go down there, other than seeing a lot of Ticos walking up and down the street looking for work, guess what? I feel like I'm in the United States. It changes completely. All right, we're back. We're buffering. It's just a bad weather, so y'all just going to have to bear with me. All right. Now, Eduardo said, I asked advice of my friend hardware store if he knew a good builder for his house kitchen extension, and he gave him a great one. So he's saying that asking or looking for advice is better. And that is true. However, you do have to be very careful. You got lucky, okay? Just because you ask someone doesn't mean you're going to get somebody good. So it does help to ask around, but if you're going to ask around, you better check out and see what has he built before. You better talk to some of his customers and say, hey, give me some input. How was his building? What did you think about it? So it's always good to ask around. You're right, Eduardo, but be very careful, because you can ask somebody and you can get a rotten builder who says he's a builder, but he has zero experience. And in Costa Rica, you don't have to have a license to be a contractor. Anybody can be a contractor in Costa Rica. Now, William brings up a pretty good point. He says carpenter ants will build a cave through your concrete. And they're huge and aggressive. Now, I don't know about through your concrete, but you can get these leaf cutter ants, and if they decide to build right up next to your house, these leaf cutter ants, if you let them live, they can build a massive tunnel system and weaken the ground beside you. So you do have to be aware of what's around you. And if you have these leaf cutter ants, make sure you do whatever poison, whatever you need to get rid of them, because they can build a massive cave practically underneath your house. And I don't know about the carpenter ants, and you might be talking about the same thing, but I'm not sure. Now, Emily's asking, what about container houses? How much do containers cost in Costa Rica? So a few years ago, I was actually looking at containers before I built this, trying to determine, because I wanted to put up something fast. But a container house, you're really constrained, because the widest it is 8 foot, which means by the time you put walls on the inside, now you're at about 7.5 foot, okay? So it's really small, and it's only 8 foot, or maybe not quite 8 foot tall. So you can buy container houses here. Typically, they're a little more expensive than what you would find in the United States. But I have found some places where you could get a container, a 40-foot container, for about $4,000 or $5,000, okay? But when I looked at that, I was like, $4,000 or $5,000, I could build this for a lot less, or I could build my own metal structure, and then I'm not bound by the constraints of a 8-foot container. So you could, okay? WP says about $3,500 US for an insulated container. And they do have different containers, whether you got these, freezer containers that they use for freezer trucks, okay? So it just really depends on where you're looking at to find a container house, and then having it transported to your place. Now, WP says his block house is 40 years old and he has no earthquakes, no cracks from earthquakes. So the first question, WP, is, do you live in Costa Rica? And where do you live in Costa Rica? You might live in an area where there's, not nearly as many earthquakes, or the earthquakes are very, very minor. And so that's a good point. Depending on where you live at, hey, and it's like I said, I wouldn't want it, but I'm not saying that you couldn't do that. Yes, you can have a block house and maybe not even have hardly any problems. Really depends on how your house is built and who built it. Jeremy says, are earthquakes more of an issue in the north or the south? I really can't answer that question. I think the correct answer is more in the center. So Costa Rica does have a lot of volcanoes, and not all earthquake comes from volcanoes. It comes from all the plates in the ground. And I really don't know where there's more. I wish I could answer that question, but I'm sure you could do the research. Now, William, he replies to WP and says he's got some cracks in his block house. And you can see it, but he's not far from Pales. And, of course, that's an area where, yep, there are a lot more earthquakes in that particular area. Now, WP brings up a really good point, because I was talking about, formed concrete, and they're going in there and they're pouring all of that concrete. And the problem with formed concrete is the consistency in the concrete. They never make the same batch the same. And that is very true, especially with Ticos, especially if they're hand mixing it. So if you're going to have formed concrete, then if you're going to go formed concrete, you make sure that you have concrete trucks come and fill it all up. Never, 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 never have formed concrete and have Ticos mixing concrete. Because I've watched Ticos mix concrete. Consistency is formed concrete. Once all your forms up, you want to pour all that same day, right then and there. Possible is to have a concrete truck that's going to have a boom, and he's going to fill up those that concrete all at the same time, fill those forms up all at the same time. So I'm glad you brought that up. WP said that he lives over in the San Mateo area, and he had a 3.4 trimmer last week. I think that's a little bit more than a trimmer. So, hey, and he says he doesn't have any crack. So I got a feeling someone built this house pretty strong. Hey, thanks for that update. Jeremy says definitely raining over there, but the sound is still good. Hey, thanks for giving me that update. And Tess kind of agrees with me and says, I don't want to live around a bunch of expats or a place where I got to pay HOAs. There's way too much control. But I wouldn't hesitate to contact a builder who built homes in one of the gated communities. Absolutely. And that is definitely a thought as well. And so, Jeremy Brock is, saying word of mouth and asking references is always a good thing. So, and that's always a good thing anywhere in the world, especially in Costa Rica. But keep in mind, you can ask references in Costa Rica. And if you're talking to other Ticos, well, all Ticos pretty much have the same mindset, okay? So a Costa Rican can build a house, and you'll have PVC plumbing and all of your water lines all exposed, okay? And a Tico, that's normal. So they're going to say, oh, he's a great builder. It's awesome. Yes. Well, a Tico, to them, that is awesome because that's normal to have exposed electricity, exposed wiring, exposed plumbing. All that's normal, okay? And so it's kind of like I talked about that guy that brought in people and taught them how to build it. Now, it wasn't plumb and it wasn't square. So guess what? Does that really matter? Yes, it does. For functionality, it don't, okay? But if your house is not square or it's not level, well, guess what? This particular house, the living room walls did just like this. So when you get ready to put your tile down, guess what? You find the center of your living room. Your tile is 12 inches. All right, then measure another 6 inches out. Your first row of tile is going to be exactly on the center. And then you work your way all the way to the walls. That way, if you have that much space, it should be the same all the way down. Well, guess what? Not when a Tico builds a concrete house. Tico builds a concrete house. At that particular house, the tile on the end was about this wide, but when you got to the front, it was about this wide. And that's simply because the house was not square, okay? Or the walls weren't square. So, yeah, it makes a huge difference, especially because, hey, let's say you get over, you're like, all right, the tile's messed up, it's not right. Well, when you get ready to decorate, when you get ready to put in furniture, all of that stuff matters if your house is not perfectly square or level. So all of that does make a difference. Is it stuff that you can live with? Absolutely. Everybody in Costa Rica has learned to live with it, and it's become normal in Costa Rica. So those are just things that you need to know about. Okay, so William is asking, he says, I have a single pane aluminum window. Wouldn't dual pane or vinyl work better here? I haven't seen any. And you're absolutely right. Most houses in Costa Rica have single pane glass. Why is that? Well, if you know anything about dual pane glass, it's better for insulation. And even though you don't really need much insulation, guess what? Dual pane glass would definitely be better. But guess what? Since Costa Rica is not going to buy the best quality and they always buy the cheapest, they can have dual pane glass and it probably wouldn't sell to anybody except the gringos. And for example, whenever you're building your house and you're doing the electrical work, anywhere where there's water present, in the bathrooms, in the kitchen, outside, you should have GFI plug-ins, okay? Ground fault interrupter plugs. Well, you can buy those in Costa Rica. They're about 20 bucks a pop. Or you can buy $2 outlet. Well, what do you think the Tico's going to buy? They're going to have $2 outlets, and they're going to put them in the kitchen, in the bathroom, outside. Why? Because they're going to rather spend $2 than $20 for the proper thing, which is a whole lot better. That's just the way Ticos are. They're not going to spend anything extra. If they won't put a toilet seat on their toilet in the house, why would they spend $20 for a GFI plug-in? Or why would they spend any extra money for a double pane window? Why would they buy a giant septic tank and install 2 or 3 when I can buy a small septic tank and install 1? It's just the way it is in Costa Rica. I'm not saying it's wrong, not saying it's bad. You just have to understand the culture. You have to understand the people. That's the way it is. And that's why it's so difficult to find high quality building materials in Costa Rica. Anybody with a business knows you stock your store full of the best selling products. If you stock your store with high quality products and the locals don't buy it, you end up with inventory that just doesn't sell. And then you end up putting it on sale for half price to get rid of it so that you can fill your store with inventory that does sell. All right, it is really starting to rain a lot harder. So, hey, please let me know if you can hear. Hey, WP says they get almost 1 earthquake a month in San Mateo. Now, the reality is in most of Costa Rica, there's an earthquake every single day. You might not feel it, okay? And what WP is talking about, he probably feels at least 1 earthquake every month. But, he's feeling the strong earthquake. But in most of Costa Rica, there are multiple tremors every single day in a lot of areas of Costa Rica. All right, so Evelise is asking, do they have city code enforcement in Costa Rica? Here in Miami, it's not. Almost anywhere in Costa Rica, with the exception of living in an HOA area, you don't have to worry about codes. Now, some of the higher end places, like there's a place in Escazú where I stay at an Airbnb when I'm flying in and out of the airport. Well, they have some, and it's I don't know if they pay an HOA, but it's a gated community. So they do have restrictions. And so how much they enforce, I don't know. Okay, but I can tell you that the majority of Costa Rica does not have city code enforcement. You can pretty much do whatever you want to. Now, that's a bad thing because I can build $1 million house on my property. The guy next door to me can put up a bamboo hut, and he can put all kind of junk everywhere. He can put a cow in his front yard, and I got to smell the poop because there's no city code enforcement in the majority of Costa Rica. So that's the good and the bad, and it can all obviously get ugly. Now, Tess, thanks so much for Tess. She says, that's the good thing about this channel. Alan will give you info on people you can trust. But he won't tell you that you can. He won't tell you you can trust people you can't trust. He's a good resource, not like some other channels. Absolutely. If I will promote somebody. And here's the thing. At one time, I would have promoted Ben Teller and his wife Joanna with Costa Rica immigration expert. And if I would have promoted him, and then he did me wrong, like he did, I will come back and tell you, look, at one time I told you folks that you could use the guy. Don't use him, okay? I made a mistake because the guy conned me. He and his wife conned me out of $4,000 or $5,000. So I I will, hey, I have actually promoted Sarah Elena. Okay, but guess what? I found out she is not on it. So if I told you that Sarah Elena was a good resource, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. I made a mistake. She conned me. We were neighbors. We lived right next door to one another. I got to know her pretty well. Her daughter came to my house all the time to play. Okay, but guess what? Sarah Elena's not an honest person, and she will tell you what you want to hear in order for you to buy more of her product and services. Hey, I used to promote Michael Allen, and we did stuff together, only to find out he was dishonest, and he used me because he knew people trusted me, and he figured that if I promoted him, people would begin to trust him. So yeah, absolutely. You got to be careful who you trust. And if I promote somebody and I find out later that they've done me wrong, I continue to advertise for them. And I let them know, you do me wrong, I'm going to continue to advertise for you. However, I'm going to tell people that you are not what I thought you were. And we were talking about tile and Rob and Lard. Rob does some building, so he's got some experience, and he says, hey, when it comes to tile, they have no clue what half check is with tile. And it's here's what's amazing is it's kind of like Eduardo said. You can ask around and say, hey, do you know anybody that does tile work? And within minutes, someone, oh yes, my brother does tile work, or my brother-in-law, or my cousin does tile work. Just because he does tile work doesn't mean he knows how to do it right or that he's an expert at it. Here's an amazing thing about Ticos. Ticos don't have a lot of money, so they're not going to go and spend a lot of money hiring somebody. They're going to do it themselves. And after they've done one or two themselves and it's functional, all of a sudden they're an expert tileman. They're an expert whatever because they've done it one time. So it doesn't mean it's going to be safe. Doesn't mean it's going to be right. You do have to be careful. So there's my point. Be careful when asking for references, okay, or asking for people. And Prince brings out a good point. He says it's not just the earthquakes, but it's the soil itself. You have to be aware of settling and cracking. Absolutely. So I tell people, look, when you buy a piece of property, before you buy a piece of property, you need to have soil tests done. A lot of people want to cut corners and like, oh, it looks good to me. I'm not going to do a soil test. Don't do a soil test. Then don't complain when your house breaks, your foundation settles and breaks, okay? So you do need to be aware of whether the soil is going to settle, whether it's going to crack. Hey, is it around a large body of water? My very first house I built, here I am 20 years old. I'm helping my dad build the house. We built on the lake, okay? I was about 100 yards from the lake. But I'm a kid. I didn't know anything. I'm 20 years old. I didn't know we needed to have soil tests. We dug some massive foundations, and we poured cement. Guess what? We were building in the wintertime, okay? And so the ground is full of water, and everything's full. Well, guess what? Summertime came. Our house is done building, and we had massive cement. Well, the foundation did like this. The back of the house that was closest to the lake, I mean, it broke the slab all the way down the center of the house. And what happened was that if you know anything about lakes, there's a lot of clay in the area. Well, in the wintertime with a lot of rain, the clay fills up and the clay swells. Well, in the summertime when it dries up, the clay dries up and shrinks. Well, guess what? The clay dried up and shrunk in the back of the house. Matter of fact, it shrunk to where the slab in the back of the house dropped about 3 or 4 inches, which caused a humongous break. And so it did just like that. And the whole slab in the back broke. So it's very, very, that was a valuable lesson, okay? Have a soil test done. Hey, thanks for the update, Jeremy. I'm glad that the audio is good. Now, somebody asked me a question today because I posted, of course, what we're going to be doing about building in Costa Rica. Peanut says, are there large mosquitoes? Now, in Costa Rica, here's what's great. Because someone on Facebook said, hey, I'd love to be outside all the time like you are, Alan. But, man, the mosquitoes would tote me away. Well, guess what? For the majority of Costa Rica, mosquitoes are not a problem. The only place that there's been a humongous problem with mosquitoes for me is anytime I lived on the beach. So if you live near the beach, and so I was right on the beach, it was about 100 yards to the beach, I'd grab my surfboard and I would take off running because there was a lot of flower beds and the mosquitoes. Wow, the mosquitoes would eat me up. I would take off running and I'd always get bit. So anywhere on the beach, especially if you got a lot of vegetation and a lot of plants and stuff, mosquitoes are horrible on the beach, okay? I live in the jungle, and I hardly ever get bit by a mosquito. I'm outside all day long, every day. I hardly ever get bit. Whenever I'm walking up through the jungle, man, I'm working in the jungle, putting in water lines, I hardly ever get bit, okay? So my point is that the mosquitoes in Costa Rica are not nearly as bad, because in Louisiana, I'd get toted off, man. Them mosquitoes are so bad. I mean, they'll tote you off. Now, and that's because there's a lot of standing water. In Costa Rica, for the most part, there's not a lot of standing water. And if there's not a lot of standing water, you don't have problems with mosquitoes. So inside this house, it's still open. I'm not done building. I'm not done sealing it up. I don't even have a front door. So normally, I don't even have a front door. And, what you see over here is a mosquito net. But it's open. Okay, mosquitoes come in. At nighttime, I might have 2 or 3 mosquitoes bite me. And all it takes is one mosquito to make it miserable. Well, I'll light a citronella candle, or if you want to put off on, you can. It's just not, mosquitoes are not a problem in Costa Rica. Oh, now this is a great point. Okay, so let's say that you're going to build a block house, okay, in Costa Rica. This is something you do need to be careful of. William says, had 2 truckloads of block delivered 6 months ago. Broke half of them when they unloaded the first truck. The second truck, I unloaded. So you see, Ticos could care less, okay? They're going to throw stuff, and if it breaks, it breaks. And they're not worried about it, okay? Matter of fact, when I was building that humongous house over in the Jaco area, they were unloading some big old humongous containers. Culverts, okay? Well, they rolled the culvert right off the truck. Well, yeah, as soon as it hit the ground, it broke, and then I had to stop, and I'm like, no. That's not how you unload these culverts. And I had to actually supervise and watch them unload the culverts after I taught them the proper way to unload the truck. You see, Ticos, they could care less. They're getting paid to do a job. I'm paid to unload the truck, and it don't matter if they break, okay? You do have to be careful. And Eduardo brings up a good point for the person that was asking about city codes. So every once in a while, inspectors will show up. And he said he was over in his area, city code or inspector came by, sat down, had coffee, lunch, signed the paperwork, and left in an hour, didn't even look around the house. That happens a lot. So, and look, if you can be there, and if you don't want him to look around, be real nice. Talk to him. Offer him coffee, something to drink. Offer him a beer. Hey, let's sit down and have lunch. And when you get done, he'll probably do the exact same thing he did for Eduardo. Hey, I don't know about that. Everybody says, Alan for Costa Rica president 2026. That probably never happened. I'm not a politician. They would probably kill me in just the first week because I'm going to set things straight in a hurry. I wouldn't live very long. Hey, I love it. Everyone says it's time for a water break. I don't have my crystal beer today. I actually have me a tea today, and that's because it's cold. Man, look, when it's cold, I like a good cerveza. I like a good Cold Islands apple juice whenever it's hot, okay? Any other time, I'd much rather have a Beano. I'd rather have a wine, a good glass of wine, something preferably my own. But today, it's hot, it's cold, as you can see, and so I got me a good hot tea. But while we are on a break, now's a good time to say if you want to support the channel, you most certainly can, okay? Hey, everything I do for free, and you supporting the channel, whether you support us by joining our members-only community, whether you support us by hitting that $ on YouTube and giving a little something, or whether you support us by scheduling a phone consultation. And if you're serious about coming to Costa Rica, I'd be more than glad to give you the good, the bad, and ugly, and help you figure out exactly what you need to do so you can have an exceptional experience living in Costa Rica. Evelyn said, mosquito life matters. Hey, mosquito lives matter. Mosquitoes help against blood clots. There's a lot of good things about mosquitoes. They feed the bats. They feed the birds. And Jeremy says the mosquitoes will carry you away in Wisconsin as well. Look, they were bad. Now, Eduardo brings up a point here. Eduardo is the exception, and he's been in Costa Rica long enough. He has figured out how to, like for a better word, manipulate or encourage might be a better way. If you want to get things done at a higher level, always, hey, talk to them and say, look, once you get all them blocks unloaded, try not to break any of them. I got a good cold beer for you. Or I'm going to give you some coffee and snacks. And take a look at what Eduardo says. He said, I never had a problem when they unloaded my things at my house. He says, they work hard. I give them coffee and snacks, give them a tip, okay? And you know what? If you go out of your way to be overly friendly and you're happy and you give them stuff, when they come back, they're going to take good care of you because they're going to want more of the same. So, Eduardo, I'm glad you are sharing that because, in the United States, here's what happens. They start breaking stuff. You start fussing and cussing, and you threaten to get them fired. Well, that don't work in Costa Rica. Because guess what? They could care less, and they're not going to get fired, okay? So you got to learn how to work with the culture. Learn the culture. I say it all the time. The most important thing you need to do when you go to Costa Rica is learn the culture. If you learn the culture, you're going to be far better. You'll understand it, and life will be a whole lot better for you. And now, William brought up a good point. A lot of times when they're building, whether it's a cinder block house or a prefab house, a lot of times they might actually put wood trusses on your house, okay? He said, and they tried to do that he took them down and he put up metal trusses with rebarb and stuff. Because absolutely, if you're in an area prone with termites, they'll eat it up. And it's just a matter of years before your roof is not very strong anymore because the termites will eat everything up. I'm talking about your door frame, your floor molding. Termites will tear it up. Now, the Happy Bagger said, did you used to do those moving to Costa Rica retreats? And were there any good vendors or contacts from those? Yeah, now, absolutely. I did 4 retreats, relocation retreats in Costa Rica. And the people that I recommended, well, the ones I recommended absolutely were good. There was one guy there, I'm trying to remember his name real quick, but, oh, no, that was Glenn Teller. No, wait, was it? Yep, that was Glenn Teller. Glenn Teller came up there, and he wasn't doing, I didn't allow him to promote his residency program for his wife, but he was actually promoting another business, and that was where you can actually borrow money and stuff like that. But Glenn Teller's a crook. I don't care if you're a crook in one business, you're going to be a crook in all businesses. But for the most part, the people that I had there, the ones that I invited over were honest and were good. But you know what? I can't vouch for those that Sarah invited. I can't vouch for those that Michael invited. I was trusting for Sarah and Michael, but unfortunately, as someone said earlier, I don't make money off of the people that I promote. Okay, I would like to, but you know what? Even if I were to get paid, unfortunately, when money comes into the mix, okay, and you promote somebody for money, well, then money changes people. People like, well, he ain't that great, but you know what? The commission is better than promoting the other person who's better. I don't want to fall into that category. Everything I do for free, okay? Now, you can support the channel, but you know what? When I promote somebody, for example, Blue Zone Legal, they are the best attorneys around. They are expensive, but they are the best. Well, I don't get a commission, okay? Now, will she do me a favor and maybe take care of some of my legal work? Absolutely. Hey, there's nothing wrong with supporting me and giving me a free service, but I don't make any money from her, and I promote her, and she knows she's going to take good care of me. I'm going to take good care of her, and I love to promote people that are going to be honest and are going to do a great, great job. So, and what is really good is if you use Christina with Blue Zone Legal, always tell them, hey, look, Alan told me about you, and it's good for them to know where they're getting their reference from. And the good thing is, let me know, because I'm always checking up. Hey, are you taking care of Sam? Are you doing a good job? Tell me what, and they always take care of the people I refer, especially when they know that you're coming to them from me, because they don't want me to say, what's the matter? Something ain't right. They're always, and I've always made a call. Sometimes things just fall through the loops, and I've actually called and say, hey, this guy said he's called you, but he hadn't heard back from you. And they're like, oh, well, let me go check. And they'll take care of it immediately, okay? Eduardo says that, being a mover, he's learned a lot of tips. And so he's passing some of them on. And the Happily Bagleys, they agree that Christina is awesome. And Tess, she says, yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're a crook in one business, you're going to be a crook in all business. Man, this is just irrefutable logic. That's too funny. And see, Prince agrees. He says, words to live by. All money ain't good money. Absolutely. And a lot of that stuff happened, on the majority of the channels out there. Hey, that's why, I have a hard time with these channels that are constantly promoting, because it's all about the money that they're getting back, the kickbacks, okay? And I like to promote people that are honest, okay? And, I will promote a product, like I promoted chainsaws and stuff. They give it to me. But when I promote a chainsaw, if it ain't good, I'll tell them it ain't good. All right, we are closing in on the hour. I hope that you have learned something about cement and about building with cement in Costa Rica. Is it the best? A lot of it just really depends on your location. Are you doing the job? Did you get the soil sample? Do you have really bad earthquakes in the area? What kind of builder you're going to have? So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Next week we're going to be talking about a different type of building material, and maybe we'll cover 2 or 3, depending on the weather. I'm actually debating, because here we are kind of 3 months into the rainy season, and I might actually move the time frame up to maybe in the morning, like 11 o'clock, so that it's not raining on us like right now. Matter of fact, you folks tell me, since it's toward the end of rainy season, what do you think about moving the time up to 11 o'clock because of the rainy season? I've got to insulate my roof, but you know what? Just don't have time right now, and it probably ain't going to happen anytime soon. All right, folks. Hey, please do exactly what Ken says. You folks that are here, make sure you hit that like button. And please, after this is all over, comment even under, if you comment on the video that's on YouTube, comment, put your comments in there. You were very engaging today. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. But be engaging and leave lots of comments. Repeat the exact same thing you said today and put it underneath the video. That way the algorithm will push it out to more people. And the people that want the truth about Costa Rica, well, hopefully will watch the video and get the same information you've got. Hey, thank you, folks. I hope y'all have a great one. Ken says, thanks to all you do. I greatly appreciate it. Hey, Evelyn's kudos for Alan. Tess, enjoy the lives, raining or not, I don't care. And Eduardo says, if it's 11 a.m. and 2 hours, you go. Eduardo's wheeling and a dealing. Hey, folks, y'all have a great one. Take care, and we'll see you next week.